7:14, I'll go ahead and call to order the Pendleton Board of Zoning Appeals for Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. Do a roll call vote starting with my left. Get your mic on.
James King.
Kyle Eichhorn.
Jenny Sisson.
All right, we do have a forum with 3 to 5 present. I will entertain a motion to approve the March 17th meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 17th minutes.
A second.
I'll second that motion.
Well, I wasn't here, but I've read through the minutes. If that is sufficient. So, okay, all right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries. On to old business. We have findings of fact for B 02/17/2026-01.
Good evening. Yes, this is the petition that was filed by Brian Toohey on behalf of Lone Pine LLC. And this is regarding Prairie Falls. They are at the North Pendleton Avenue. It's a future development that will be a residential small lot SF3 zoning district. There are 22 acres there, approximately about 42 homes that will be built there on the site. This particular petitioner had requested your board to consider a variance in regards to this side yard setback, requesting 6 feet side yard setback as compared to the standard 10 feet setback requirement. This was specifically just for properties that would opt to have a 2.5 to 3 car garage for those bump out garages or a 3rd car garage. This body, this is a pretty streamlined request. It was the only request that the subdivision developer needed to request to be able to get started on their primary plat processes. In review, the board determined that it was not injurious to public health and safety. A lot of the features on the home and the site were taken into consideration, as well as we had consulted with South Madison Fire Territory, and they had given support as well with the reduced setbacks based on all the information that was provided. Second, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property was not deemed to be affected in a negative manner. This would give a little bit more seamless look to the neighborhood, as well as that density requirement as to the standard is met. The strict application of the terms of the ordinance was deemed to result in a difficulty if this variance was not approved. The zoning ordinance would then prevent the development to give a little bit more variety as far as house stock, as well as including and allowing some larger attached garages there to the sites. And the petitioner had provided sound argument and justification for the variance as presented, and that was determined by the board. The requested variance is the minimum measure of relief necessary. They not only are going to limit it to those particular lots that would have the 2.5 or 3 car garage, but they also put in a commitment that the HOA that any enlargement of the footprint of the home could not encroach upon that 6 feet setback. And then the last criteria that the board considers that the variance did not correct a hardship that was previously established or created by the petitioner or a previous owner. This land is undeveloped and at the time of petition and still to today, and there is no structures or development to this date yet on the site. There was no objection to the petition that was filed and or presented, and then there were the 5 conditions or commitments that the petitioner did agree upon. That the variance would relate only to those lots with the 2.5 to 3 car garage elevations. All the other UDO development standards would be met for this subdivision. HOA covenant provision, as stated earlier, and then that the mechanicals would be contained within an enclosed room inside the living quarters and not in the garage. And the exterior material would be a non-combustible material, and that no vinyl would be allowed in the subdivision. Those were the findings of facts that were determined by this board. And if you have any questions, let me know. We've got the, if you're in agreement too, we've got that for signing after our meeting.
All right, go ahead and move on.
All right.
Next item is variance from development standard 590 South Main Street.
Here. Get a little bit Okay, if you want to go on down, yes, this is a petitioner. If you give me a moment, our petitioner is having some difficulty connecting in tonight, so I'm going to put him on the line, confirm that he can hear. Hi, Mr. Humble, this is Denise. We're here in the public hearing for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, okay, and we've got Christy as well. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of walk through a little bit. I know that we have presented this petition. This has been shared over a course of two meetings here with the Board of Zoning Appeals. They were continued for various reasons, but just kind of want to kind of touch base is kind of where we left off, where we were at the time of our last meeting. So since then, the petitioner was advised, he needed to be here and be present. And so he is online. If you have any questions, he can answer that as well. Or if Mr. Humble, if you have anything later here in a moment, if you wanted to add at the direction of the board, we'll make that available to you. Okay, all right, great, thank you. We're not going to go over unless you need me to go over the site details and the request for this petition, but basically this petitioner is asking and had requested for a variance of developmental standards to be able to add on to an existing structure, to be able to do so in not meeting all of the site development and or the structure architectural standards, including the exterior materials and so forth, on that particular site. We kind of worked through and talked through, when there is an existing land use and what is prompted and what need to take place if there's a change in land use, which he is proposing to keep the same land use. Second is that if there is an expansion of that structure for more than 50%, then he is to then kind of comply with the development standards of the Unified Development Ordinance. However, that being said, when there is an expansion in an existing use and site, it is to be proportionate. Those changes are then to be proportionate to then the request or the addition that would be taking place on that site. But if you want to go ahead, and this is our site layout as far as kind of where that new addition will be added onto the existing structure. It outlines here as far as the public right of way, also public utilities available to the site, as well as then those setbacks that are required per the standard. I don't know if you want to go ahead and go. We also went through, this is an image of what this structure would be absent the awning and porch would not be installed back onto the structure once it is attached then to the existing structure. You can go ahead and go on to the next slide. This is kind of the layout. This is what we kind of broke through, and we kind of worked through our Unified Development Ordinance at our last couple of meetings. The next slide is we have the proposed exterior elevation with the 3 garage bays to the south end of the building. It is the building, the structure that is addition will set out front from the existing structure. It will be attached by a 6x6 connector in the middle. And we kind of outlined, what he has agreed to do to the site by applying fresh stone on the parking lot and driveway apron, landscaping the foundation plantings on the south wall of the new addition, leading up to the connector porch and service door on the south wall of the new addition. Also offering a 6-foot privacy fence that would be opaque, limited to the side and rear yard off the north wall of the new addition. And then a concrete driveway apron when the town does go to expand the roadway and to improve sidewalk amenities there in that area. And then to commit to maintaining the landscape and manicure of the lawn at all times, subject to our code enforcement measures, and to maintain the current land use. And you'll see then here kind of the elevations there as well. What was presented at the last meeting, what was proposed by the petitioner, all stays the same today. There's not been a modification in any intentions. The next slide here, the property owners' commitments and what was agreed upon, and the reason why we continued this is to have some guided discussions, facilitated discussions between the property owner as well as the adjacent property owners around the site that expressed concern and request for your consideration. So you'll see here outlined what all that they had come to terms with in an agreement. And I feel that these are very reasonable. One is to continue that same land use, which is indoor storage on the site, that the outdoor storage prohibited unless properly screened behind an opaque 6 feet fence per architectural standards and our zoning ordinance. That to be to the side and the rear of the primary structure's north wall. And also to include, that would include any type of materials, vehicles, or equipment on that site. Overhead doors and exterior materials and product as proposed, that would be complementary for the existing structure as well as what would be complementary to the new addition. That there would be improvements to the parking lot and driveway apron with fresh gravel as proposed and open to concrete driveway in the future. There also was an agreement that a survey will be conducted to ensure that the setbacks, especially to the rear for that new addition, are met. And that would need to be submitted to the planning department before we would then issue a building permit for this remodel expansion of this site. The petitioner is also to maintain sightly property at all times, subject to the unsightly code enforcement that we have in place. Petitioner also agreed to maintain noise control per the town ordinance. A chain link or farm fencing would be prohibited on the site, and property would be limited to one driveway access point only. Landscape and foundation plantings were deemed appropriate and as would be required by the Board of Zoning Appeals. If you have any specific landscaping that you would like to seek in this particular site development, that both parties would be open to that. And then same thing as well as any particular set hours of operations as deemed appropriate by your board. Then down below, you're going to see outlined those 4 areas that did not come at the last communication with all parties is in the 4 areas outlined below. First is that the roof of the existing structure and connector, the adjacent property owners are asking that to be the same material as the new addition, including the 12-inch overhang. That as well as the other, the next 2 additional bullet points is features that the petitioner has expressed that it is not a feasible option for him to consider. The second is exterior material to be applied on that south wall. So he has agreed to apply the same exterior for the new addition, apply that to the front facade of the existing structure. The property owner to the west and to the north, they were in agreement to not require that on the back wall, but they would like to have it on that south wall that is visible from Main Street, the public roadway. Then the other request is that requesting the bays that coming in off of, instead of the front roadway coming in off from the east, to then be converted and realigned then to the south wall, to have that provided, to the site and have that structure configured a little bit to meet the standard in our Unified Development Ordinance that then goes away from having those bays visible from the roadway. So those were the 3 requests, and then as well as those are the 3 that the petitioner feels that are not feasible for his needs and for the project there. But then also the 4th piece that there has not been an agreement between all parties is that no mechanical or auto repair operations would take place on the site. And we just want to note that that is a use that is not permissible in neighborhood business. And we've advised the petitioner of that as well. So that's kind of where we're at. I don't if you have any questions for me, for the petitioner, also the property owners, we do have a couple of property owners here as well. The Bargers are here present as well.
I do have questions.
Yeah.
We'll start with the roof. Is that they don't match? They're as in colors or materials
Yep, that's a good question.
or
Yes.
both?
Yep, they are both metal roof. One is kind of a whitish light gray coloring.
The current.
Yep, and it is in directional from going from would be kind of east to west, where then the new addition would be going from north to south from the peak. And that it is still also a metal roofing, but it is a dark brown, and it also has 12-inch overhang on each side.
My second question is, the no mechanical auto repair. That's not a permitted use, but
That is
then
correct.
why is it on this list?
That is just something that they wanted added to the list as a commitment. That would be the property owners. Yes, and
Just reinforce.
to reinforce that that is activity that could not take place and that
Gotcha.
there was full clarification. on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was thinking
Yeah.
someone wanted it when it wasn't permitted use. And then that south wall, if the petitioner can talk about why, that's not a feasible
Mhm.
request to make it matching. It's this smaller wall and it's very visible when you're driving up from the south heading north.
Mr. Humble, did you hear that?
If he's talking about the south wall of the existing building,
Yes, that's correct. Yes, and why?
I believe according to what you just spoke of earlier, that wall plus the front facade will be done in the siding to match the proposed building. That's already been addressed.
Okay, so in my conversations with you, you had expressed that putting the exterior material, the new exterior material on the south wall was one that was not visible from the roadway or feasible for you. So are you in agreement to that commitment? To apply that new material not only to the east wall, but the south wall of the existing structure?
Where our previous conversations were, and there's two issues here you're talking about. One, you're talking about the south wall. And two, you're talking about they would like for me to put the same roof on the existing building that's on the proposed building. Okay, that's the two issues.
Mhm.
For our conversation between, I think it was me and you, that I did agree to re-facade the south wall, but it's not feasible to put a brand new metal roof on it when there's nothing wrong with the metal roof that exists. And it's in the color scheme of the existing roof is in the color scheme of the buildings, because that roof is going to be a very close match to the overhead doors that it's going to go in, which matches the facade that's going on around the buildings. So just because one building has a different colored roof, they're both in the same color scheme as the project.
Color schemed as far as complementary of the other materials on the proposed adjustments, not roof to roof. You're talking about complementary to the overhead doors and the exterior material.
That's correct.
So I have down here, that was not my notes that we had in a conversation that you agreed to the exterior material on the south wall, but I've got that down. That's great. Okay. So I think we're down to the roof, the material, and then the direction of the bays of the new addition. Oh, no, I'm just kind of summarizing as we go. Yes, sorry.
why they are in the gables end or the side that's gonna be facing east, which is the same side the other doors on the existing building are facing. Therefore, all the doors are gonna be of the same style door, that raised panel. They'll all be of the same color. The vertical siding that's gonna go on the existing building will match the vertical siding on the proposed building. And the reason that the doors are on that particular side is to make use of the length of that building for storage. Obviously, I can get a longer vehicle in that building in the 40-foot than I can in the 32-foot. So that's the way the building was designed.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
So I'm looking at, so the UDO requires structure and site features for new development or expansion. And so structural architectural standards, the materials that are being proposed are a prohibited material.
That is-
Exposed fastener. It
Yes,
looks like
and
the
that
roof-
is-
It looks like the roof is standing seam. But the exposed fastener and then the service bay doors on the front facade. So that looks like the two
Yes, variances, yes.
items.
Mhm.
And then site features, it looks like they would be required to do a paved or asphalt driveway and put sidewalk along the entire road frontage. So they're not proposing to do that either.
That is correct, yes.
Or some language that said that when the city widens the road, then they would consider.
That is correct. It
Con-
would be a
concrete
part of
barriers.
a comprehensive project. That
but
is
right
correct.
now,
That,
That's
right.
required.
I mean, the UDO says that site feature has to be a paved
If,
concrete or asphalt driveway.
if, so our legal, I didn't kind of reviewed our non-legal, our legal non-conforming chapter. And what their interpretation is that when there is a land use change, then yes, it has to come in full compliance of all the developmental standards. When there is a expansion of an existing structure that may be legal, but it's non-conforming, that then the features around the site and those changes need to be in proportion to how much change they're proposing to make to the site. So that's that gray area we talked about as far as this is territory we've never really explored. And so it's not exactly 100% clear because you are right, page 57, it talks about when you expand a building for 50%, it needs to be in full compliance with the architectural standards. But our other chapter speaks a little bit different. So that's where we were kind of going, our best to be able to kind of navigate this to get as many of the features. And that's where we kind of outlined that there were probably 20 some features that if it were new development or land use change, that they would have to come in full compliance too. But trying to work with petitioner, work with the property owners surrounding to be able to get to a good common ground, kind of. But yes, you are correct. It's a variance that was kind of, it was in particular to the exterior material, but yet also kind of a blanket variance for developmental standards, not having to meet all of what is required in the UDO.
So they don't-
Any,
so
Okay, so I've got Mr. King that would like to speak here. He's on the board. Just a second.
there's a question for staff. The way the garage doors are facing on the proposed addition, that's not a variance, that's just a preference of the neighboring property.
That is a part of our site development standards, is to have bays not facing the public roadway, to be non-facing, yes. So if we had a new development, then that would be one feature that we would make sure that that needed to be in compliance, or they would come back to seek a variance from that.
So that doesn't apply to garage doors and homes, though. It's just,
Correct.
you're calling this a
It's
repair
more
issue.
in commercial zoning districts. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Mr. Humble, did you have a comment?
Well, concerning that issue you're talking about right now, you and I had a conversation concerning why the overhead doors were gonna be on the east elevation of the new building rather than the south. And that reason, I'll reiterate, was because there would be a conflict of being able to move any vehicle with the doors on the existing
Yes.
facing east and the other doors facing south. I'd be blocking my own garage doors, so
Yeah.
that's why the doors are on the east side on both buildings.
Yes, and you did, yes, you did speak of that, that it was not only that it was feasible, it was not functional for you.
Correct.
I guess, if there's anybody, we want to open it up for comment for people.
Yeah, I would open up public.
Okay. All right, so it's, 7:40, we'll open the public hearing. If there's anybody here or online who wishes to speak on this petition, please come forward.
Hi again, Jeff Berger, 620 South Main. I said my address on the. We met with Mr. Humble, actually, we met with staff. We tried to come up with common sense, us and our neighbors, the Weirleys, tried to come up with some common sense approach that makes sense for all of us involved. Really, the important part to us has not been agreed on by the petitioner. The reason being is obviously both of our driveways are right there. The roofs are important to us. They, in our opinion, of course, opinions are opinions, but the two different roof non-matching roofs are a big deal because you're going to be going home every night and you're going to see two multi-color buildings that potentially are going to be eyesores. And now's the time to bring that into compliance in our, the Wheeler's opinion. The bays are also important to us because, again, just from aesthetically looking at the building, you're not going to have a 12 by 14 or a 14 by 14 garage door staring you in the face every time, you know, you come and go down that major thoroughfare, even above the other public. That is in the UDO. All of our requests are actually straight out of the UDO. Nothing personal, nothing request because we didn't like this or we didn't like that. We stayed in complete compliance with the request with the UDO. One thing we haven't discussed, I hate to prolong the conversation, but I guess we haven't discussed the expansion of the current parking lot. I'm assuming if you guys don't agree to make that compliance with the garage doors moving facing the south, then what's that apron going to be? Is that going to be gravel all the way? And then are we still going to be in compliance with the stone coverings for that lot? As I know there's different things with that. That's something that we haven't discussed, but in thinking on how this meeting could potentially go, I guess I'm a little bit curious on that. Is the whole thing going to be gravel at that point? Because we've agreed not to have the hard surface put on the existing property, but if that gravel is then going to be expanded, basically the whole parcel, then maybe you guys want to at least discuss some of that, because that's another big potential issue with that. I know we can keep it gravel, or he can keep it gravel, but is that something you guys would be comfortable with, having a full lot of gravel there? I'm sure the Weirleys probably wouldn't be in favor of that as well. But basically, I won't, we've been here, this is my third time, so I won't say the same thing over and over again. Be glad to answer any other questions that come up. The overhangs, again, fall in the roof line. that's why I requested it, because that way it would all be matching. So when you look at it, at least it looks like one structure rather than a building that's been put up in one place that had to be taken down, that's now being put up because, you know, that's where the only place we can stick it. So I understand there's some cost involved. I'm sure that potentially be coming up, but that's not your or our problem that he already has a building that he purchased, that he put up and then had to take down, and now is trying to put in a spot that really, maybe it didn't potentially obviously be designed for that spot. So again, we'll keep going through this, but yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody online? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:44. So I do have a quick question. So if these two new doors are to face Main Street, is that gonna be gravel in front of the building or is,
Yes, he would be doing fresh stone over the existing and then bumped out then, would be,
clear
what,
up the
32
north edge of the new building?
to
Like on this sketch here,
the north, yes,
like, if you-
to the north wall of the new building.
and it would be all.
To have to where he would be able to then drive up there, he's not then going into the bays on the grass. Would be.
And what's that black line going to?
That is that 6-foot privacy fence. That would be where he would have to store any exterior materials or equipment or vehicles behind that.
Be the rules for taking a box and probably gonna roll your eyes at me, but would be the rules about putting a privacy fence across the whole frontage of the property.
Yeah, that is against our standards. So you can have a 4-foot fence on the front lawn, not a, yeah.
There was a mention in here about, buffer yards. Buffer yard type 1, where would that be required typically?
That would then be between, actually could be technically required on all 3 sides. So between the neighborhood business zoning district to the residential to the south, the property kind of wraps around, this parcel. So then it could even be the rear of the property. There's not much room, there, but then over here then to the far north.
So
then
all
where-
5 side except.
The front. Mhm. Yep. There is a kind of a wooded patch between this property to the south, a natural tree line, and then of course then there's the wooded lands all the way to the west of the parcel. And then there is some, I think there's some trees coverage separation between the Weirleys over there to the north end a little bit.
What if the buildings weren't connected? And it was further away from the north or the south building? With the doors facing south, is that,
We would have to
Rotate
take,
the building.
that rotate the building but move it out this way a little bit?
look at, yeah, alternate option, yeah. Do you hear that, Mr. Humble? That would be
Yeah.
not connecting. I think he was wanting to have one seamless structure for office and building use, but you could speak on that.
Okay. Well, the comment that was made, that the existing roof on the existing building is a gray color. That is not a gray color on that building. That is a cream color, the same color as the existing sliding doors on that building. So again, when the whole project is completed, it's gonna be one facade that can be seen from the street. Obviously, the proposed building is that cream colored building with a darker brown roof. But the existing building, again, it would have the same overhead doors as the proposed building, same color. The vertical siding's gonna be exact same siding that's proposed for, or that's on the proposed building. So there's no color change, even with the existing roof. It's gonna match the existing or the proposed facade of all the buildings. So, I think there was a statement made at some point that the existing building had a gray roof on it, and it does not. It is the same color as the proposed building and doors, overhead doors, so, and probably after it's all up and done, the fascia and overhang on the proposed building is, I think you can see from the pictures I think Denise has had out presented before, but the fascia on the existing building will be painted that same green, moss green color. So, you know, it matches all the way around. I'm not gonna create an unsightly project here. I'm proud of the property, and that's how I take care of the property, and have always taken care of the property, including vegetation.
Yes, Mr. Humble, I think what the question from the board member is that would you have the option to not connect the existing building with the new addition? Then that would release that connection to allow you to orientate that building from north to south, where then those bays would then be in line with your existing driveway parking lot, and to eliminate that, those open bays being visible from the public roadway. That's where he was asking if that possibility of having two separate structures on the site versus having a joined building, would that be an option? I know you talked about a seamless building and connection between the two and maybe having a restroom in there or whatnot at some point in that connector area, but that is what he's asking. And right now, we're gonna pull up a picture of the existing property to show them that roof and the color of that roof compared to what product you have provided. So we're working on that right now, but if you want to answer that question that is from our board member.
Well, if you disconnect the two buildings, then you're automatically creating a larger parking lot. More pavement, more stone, whatever the case may be, and turning the doors where they're gonna be turned a different direction. It's just not feasible with the design of the building.
Okay, so yeah, so you can see right there, the existing structure there and the color of the roof compared to what was presented. You know, if petitioner were to entertain the idea of not building as an attachment, that would not be an expansion of the existing structure. I mean, that would be a new structure, on the site. But,
What Kyle and I were just talking about, sidebar, was give it some air, but to reach the goal of having the doors face south, you can go back to that overhead shot.
Okay, go to the previous.
Sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
Basically just rotate the building.
Yeah, it's the same, yeah.
You still have a connector even.
Counterclockwise.
And the driveway would service those.
But then he'd have to decide between
Yeah.
doing it that way and blocking his own driveway, as he mentioned earlier, or not getting it approved, if that's the way it turns out.
Well, it makes a lot less driveway too, if you're not gonna have to put gravel down in all that area that's grass. It's just there, that exists. Yeah, where that 59 feet is.
Well, we would not allow him to expand the width at the right of way.
Yeah,
It, but we'd have to swoop over, yes.
but if you just
Yeah.
turned it 90, you basically not be adding any of it. Right. It's the doors to be where those vehicles.
Yeah, we just would have to make sure that our setback was met all the way to the north, because that property angle's there, but we would have to do a check on that. But
It's just.
Yep.
It's an idea to not have to at least get rid of one of the
And if,
variances.
Yeah.
just curious, for the petitioner, this is a question for Mr. Noble. How long a vehicle are you gonna need to park there? And I understand there's a turning radius issue, probably with longer vehicles.
Well, the way it's laid out now, I have plenty of turning radius. And there will be grass between, in other words, at the back edge of the city property line that the city purchased from me to put that new sidewalk and move the power poles and all that. There will be a grass area inside of that city walkway, and still I'll have a stone driveway and still be able to get a vehicle in that building, and it's 40 foot deep, so if I wanted to rent it out to somebody that had a fifth wheel, medium-sized RV, or, whatever, by use of that 14 foot door and the depth of that building, it leaves me to service those needs of somebody that's got a RV of that size.
That makes sense.
That also changes the intended use of a non-conforming property.
it would,
Yeah,
it would affect
And
what,
that changes
what the
everything
petition and what
then.
they're asking
we're
for.
going back to square one.
That will change the intended use.
Him using it to rent out. It's a non-conforming property that's for his personal use.
Okay. So one house.
He can use it for indoor storage. He can, and it is neighborhood
For-
business, so
Personal, yeah.
he can use it for commercial. For indoor storage, it's not limited to just personal.
But then when he,
But if it were to use for alternate uses, say mechanical or whatnot, then that changes the use, but indoor storage is permitted, yes.
Okay.
But if it was for a repo, car repo use or something of that sort, we've had those conversations, that is a different type of storage, yes. And a different, it's not.
but storage where I guess in my mind, storage for himself and self-use is different than him using it as a commercial property business. When you're renting, that becomes a business.
So the indoor storage for neighborhood business isn't limited to personal indoor storage. Yeah, so he would be permitted to be able to have vehicles if he had individual that wanted to store it over the winter time or whatnot. That would be a permitted use in neighborhood business. It's just that it would not be able to be elevated for, mechanical repair, an auto repo, lot, yeah, outdoor storage, those things. Yes, yeah.
Go to the sketch. Oh. On there, it says 6 foot opaque fence and gate. So is the plan to put a 6 foot fence all along Main Street?
No, that was his original
Okay.
drawing. Yes, that's his original
That's
drawing.
fine.
What he is committed to is limited to what is in the print.
Gotcha.
Yes, yeah. No, he went over that and that is not permissible. And yes, that is not, yes, that is just original drawing that he had provided.
So essentially what you guys are figuring is to take those two doors and flip them south. Have them face south.
Well, since he wants to be able to use the full 40-foot depth, the only way to make that work is to rotate the building.
Rotate it and separate it.
Well, and I don't know that you necessarily have to separate it. I think there's a way to potentially configure it where you could still have a breezeway. And the doors could face
Maybe
that.
shape.
Yeah, it would have to probably come out more farther to the east. We'll
Yeah.
just have to make sure that we get
Yeah,
that.
so you'd have to. make
Yes,
sure.
yeah. Mhm.
Put the apron on the proposed building in front of those overhead doors, so there'll be a 10 foot by 32 foot pad. And then there will be probably a new pad put on all across the front of the existing. So there'll be new concrete pads going into both buildings.
The storage of someone else's vehicle there, that's the very first time that that's been discussed. It's the first time it's came before. I've heard of it, but I'm sure that was the case with the Learleys. I think there's some interpretation there on Denise's part, which I respect Denise. I appreciate your help in all this. I think there's some interpretation there on is that the continued, basically we based this entire process off the continued use of the existing structure being storage for personal storage. That's what we've heard from day one. Now we're talking about renting spots out for other, once you do one, then the other, then we're gonna have 5 different things. I mean, that's just the way that's going to turn into. I mean, obviously, with that many garage doors, if you're using personal storage and you don't have 19 cars in a building that big, I'm not saying you don't have a lot of things, but if we're opening it up to that and we're going to allow that, I have really some concerns. I'm sure that a lot of the other neighbors would as well on allowing that to be a rental. Now we've got a storage unit. Now we're talking storage unit stuff like over here at Steve's. So, I don't know how you can limit it to just one or we end up, okay, we're gonna do 4. It's kind of like the animals with these guys, we're gonna have 4 chickens and 2 donkeys and 8. I mean, who manages that? Who does that? That. I really have concerns of that. If that's something that's gonna be allowed, with as much as I hate to, I would hope that potentially we could get some more public input, and not to belabor this, because trust me, this is the last place I want to be tonight. On making sure that's something that everybody's familiar with, because that can clearly say that that's not. That's gonna affect a lot more neighbors along Pendleton Avenue or along Main Street. We're not just talking a building look, now we're talking a completely different use from what we've been told, so. Please keep that in mind if that's something that is going to be allowed. I would like to research that some more because I am not nearly as familiar with the UDO as the staff. However, I have spent some time in it. And I'm not sure that I totally agree with that. And also, I know that there would be some more public input if that were indeed the case, so.
I hear you and I definitely concur. Because it is non-conforming right now. And even though it's a permitted use, what we are looking at to approve, we're making these concessions because it's personal use. And that's where the gray area is. If it was gonna be a business, then it would have to comply with the UDO. And that's the way that I interpret that. And so right now, we have this gray area of the 2 different chapters in our UDO. And we're really trying to merge 2 existing buildings together, which is also adding additional complications. If
Mhm.
it was being built on scratch, it could it would be an easier solution. But we're taking two existing buildings, that, again, trying to make the best of it because it was personal use. And I do think that that changes that gray area in the UDO when we're marking it as a functional business.
So in neighborhood business, self-storage, indoor storage is a permitted use. So, and the square footage falls within what is permitted.
But it's non-conforming.
It's
Right.
non-conforming, but a non-conforming property still is entitled to the land uses within that zoning district. So, is that correct? Am I saying that out of line? I mean, if,
But are you allowed to increase the non-conformity?
Yeah.
no, I didn't say that. It's,
Well, I mean, it's going from one building to two buildings, you're doubling the non-conformity.
but the indoor self-storage is not the non-conformity. It's the materials, it's the site features, it wasn't the land. So it went from planned business to then it went to residential, planned business, I think, over time. And then, I mean, it has varied quite a bit over the years. Then it went to neighborhood business. And in neighborhood business, you want to go up to the few slides up there.
So he would be able to rent the current building out right now? As is? He couldn't do that.
So it's just, he's limited to, yeah, indoor storage is what I would, my, understanding of what his allowed use is on the site is self-storage, indoor storage.
So
On
the
board.
current building, as is, could be rented.
Correct.
Okay. Then he's asking,
The limit to indoor storage,
Indoor
not
storage.
outdoor.
but he's asking for multiple variances that would keep that property non-conforming for the UDOs in that we would continue to allow a business in non-conforming, but generally, when we would approve something that's non-conforming, we would have to get it up to standards for that permitted use. Am I missing something?
Yeah, no, I mean, he is still wanting to exercise the same land use as what he is already permitted to do so.
But the gray areas where I have a problem.
I
with,
understand. It is
because
definitely a gray area.
Then if
I
it's used
understand.
as a business,
in-
and not personal,
So he operated as a concrete business is what he had. He ran his own business out of it. It wasn't personal storage. It was a business that he operated. He's retired from that business. So that's why it's been, a vacant, non-activity on that site is because he had retired an existing concrete business that he had his own equipment stored that he could store in there. I don't believe, our UDO doesn't break down indoor storage to where it can't be, if it's listed as a retail permitted use.
so then wouldn't we need to look at the site as far as setbacks? Calling in fifth wheelers, RVs, whatever is going to be stored indoors, that since others will be going there, dropping their vehicles off, that everything else is in compliance, because we've not talked about any of that.
No, yes.
I had, the wife and I had our own RV at one time, okay?
Yeah.
And I have been associated with that industry for some time now. And, as well as, restored or classic cars.
Yes, and that's what we have talked about.
And typically, if a person owns an RV, and particularly one of that size, he's looking for some place to keep it during the winter months and not basically through the summer months. It's not something that they're gonna park that in that garage and they're always gonna come and pick it up when they take it out, and put it back whenever they come back. That's not the type of warehouse space that I'm gonna project. I don't want that. I don't want people running in and out there at all hours, picking up or dropping off. Typically, you're looking at a person that needs to pick the boat up when spring comes, and they will return it in the fall for storage. That's it.
So Denise, my thought was, up until today, it was going to be storing classic cars or whatever type of vehicles, personal. Since we don't know how the driveway would be, how any of that would conform to operational business, that is a permitted use from what I'm hearing. To me, I have other concerns than say we would approve this. And maybe the driveway's not set up the way it should. Where does the town fall in liability? It's not just the owner, because we approve. So if an RV's pulling out and hits someone, well, they didn't have the right clearances. Things weren't built out the way they needed to. I'm also concerned with that. Have we done our due diligence there? And I realize tonight's the first night, because up until now, I heard classic cars, personal vehicles. There's a laundry list there of things we really need to consider.
Ralph, do you have any
Yeah.
input on that?
Well, I think that the board is permitted to, you know, if you choose to have staff go back and look at these, if you have additional conditions that you want to place on, that's certainly permitted. You have a petition, this is at least the second or third meeting. I mean, really, if you want to have a petitioner to be in person and to address all these things, it's your discretion to really.
So health, safety, and welfare, and those things drive every board in the town, right? And I'm hearing safety. If we're gonna, he's gonna have other people come in. If it's personal and he's bringing in stuff and he hits, that's on him. But when you're renting it out and becoming a business, even though it's, I'll say, permitted per interpretation, if we approve something here, it is, the onus is on us that we didn't think through safety. And that's a busy road. It's getting busier. And to me, safety needs to conform. And because this is newly presented, I don't feel like the way the driveways are with being able to pull out the skirts, all of that, none of that's been discussed.
So, as far as the uses, the intention is to keep the land use as indoor storage, self-storage. That has been what we've presented all the way forward. I've had conversations with petitioner and he's inquired about other different type of uses, and I made it very clear that if you're doing that, this is the wrong petition. You either gotta go through a rezone request through planning commission, you gotta go through conditional use through BZA, that this is a different type of petition. This petition is to keep the allowed indoor storage usage active on that site but yet the request was to be in the structural and the site features was the request as far as what we can sway as a variance from those requirements from the UDO. It is definitely a gray area. This is the first time that I've heard him say that he wanted to rent something out in his building. So that is the first that I've heard his staff come. He's brought up other, a repo, establishment for a repo vehicle. He's brought up mechanical, auto repair, minor, motorcycle repair. I've made that very clear that that is something he can't pursue. As far as the land use and the table, if he were to sell this property, I do, want to also state, if he were to sell this property that is zone neighborhood business, and he came in with a site development plan for a retail, a store, a restaurant, within the means, all those uses that are in that table is something that if they met every single development standard, we would not be able to prevent that on his site. So that was our way to try to work with, as asked by one of your co-board members, to be able to walk him through and the property owners adjacent to him to try to be able to find that within his desires to be able to utilize this land, is there a way to be able to come to a common ground? So that's kind of where, we're at in just presenting, if you want, us to look further into, how often, is he intending to bring in X amount of RVs, or, it all has to be indoors. It cannot be outdoors. That is something that is not permissible within neighborhood business. So, we would have the code enforcement to limit that. This is a tough petition for sure. And this has been a tough to kind of work within, our standards and try to navigate through this. So, I completely understand where you're coming from.
Going back to the way the floor is oriented, so, it's a prohibited exterior material. And the service bays are facing the road, so it's both seem like self-inflicted conflicts. This building, he already has it, so that's why the material doesn't compete, and the doors are where they're at, but, my thought is if you can site the building such that the doors don't face the road, that seems like, why do you need a variance for that if you don't have to have, if the property was long and narrow and you couldn't turn the building sideways, that may be one thing, but it seems to me like you could use the proper materials and you could face the doors away from the street. Just, they're choosing not to.
But that would be changing the existing doors.
Well, I'm just talking about the new building. I mean, the old building just can stay as it is. It's grandfathered.
And the way this was all designed is that so that a vehicle backing out of the existing building or the proposed building would never have to back out into the street. There is plenty of room to turn a vehicle around and be able to pull out forward for safety's sake concerning local people and concerning the person that's pulling out of the property. It's not a good idea to back out on Main Street when cars are flying off the Pendleton Avenue and coming down Main Street and are going in excess of the speed limits. But that was the purpose of keeping that the design it is. So something backing out of the proposed building wouldn't have to back out on the Main Street. They could pull out on the Main Street. And a vehicle pulling, a boat in or whatever, they wouldn't have to back into the property. There's all kind of room with that existing layout that's gonna be re-stoned all the way over to the north side of the proposed building. That there's plenty of area to maneuver vehicles.
Does Mr. Humble object to rotating the building? Has been suggested by two board members.
You're being asked by our council if you object to rotating it to the bays that would face south and north to north.
I mean,
Either whether it was connected or whether it was separate. My conversation with you is yes, but is that still the answer?
yes, I'm opposed to rotating the doors, because then physically, I don't have the full use of the depth of that building.
And if you were to, I'm
gonna be blocking my own doorways, so putting the doorways on the proposed building on the south side of that building is not feasible at all because of that issue right there. You can't get the proper length of vehicle in the building, and I'm blocking the other overhead doors on the existing building.
so if you were to not connect the two and you were to orientate the building from south to north, coming off of the existing parking lot, not connecting the two, and if we were able to meet our setback standards, would that be something that you could agree to? Where, yes, the bays would still be on that same wall, the more narrow wall,
It'd be 40 foot
but
north,
it would
south.
be 40 foot on the south end, of the wall.
And then you have to move that proposed building to the north, increasing the size of the parking lot in the stone area.
Well, it'd be 32 on the south if
Yeah.
you were to orientate,
40
yes,
foot north. south.
40, yeah, 40 foot going north and south.
Yeah, you rotate the 40 foot, so it's going north and south.
It would allow your bays to be facing the south.
Okay, now they're it's again, no, but that feasibly, you're blocking other doorways and you're
And that's what they're asking, if that would be,
you're limiting the use of those doors. Like right this way, they'll be able to be used full time. Rotating that and making the configuration you're talking about limits you to the use of those overhead doors and the square footage in the building.
but if you were to still be able to have full length of that building, 40 feet, and there was no outdoor storage permitted, including vehicles that were out in that parking lot, then how would that prohibit you to be able to get full usage of the new addition, the new proposed building?
Okay, well. Yeah. Take the building. And put the 40 foot running north and south. And you still have to adhere to the offset that from the back of the property. It's gonna be a configuration that it's not gonna work for my use.
Well, if you move it east a little bit, it's not gonna be corner to corner like it is now, maybe. I can't really just do it by eyeball. But you'll still have use of the full 40 foot length of the building, full vehicles in it from the bay. And if you're parking them inside, you're not blocking the doors on the other building unless you have a vehicle that you're leaving there. And it looks like from the can you go back to the picture?
The street view.
Remember
That's not-
at the front of that proposed building, as it is drawn, I am keeping the setback from the city property or the right of way at Main Street that is proposed.
Right, so we have a right of way acquisition here, but the existing setback from that is what you calculated.
Yeah, we've
correct?
got from this adjustment, yeah. So if we have, let's see,
On
from,
that, sorry, on that building, are those two brown rectangles, squares, are those the doors or are they the tan, three tan?
The brown sliding doors.
and they would be replaced with overhang doors.
Cause on the drawing, it looks like there's three doors on that building.
There's a little door there.
No, I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's three sliding doors on the building. And they would be replaced with the appropriate size overhead door.
Yeah. So taking a look, now this is just from, not even scale, but just from alignment here. If you bump that out, say 25, 30 feet separation. So if we orientated the building this way, out here to get the setback requirement back here at the rears at angles here. We've got 25 feet that we need to have for a right of way. And it would still be met by approximately about 30 feet.
What is the rear
35.
setback?
What's that?
What's the rear setback?
20. And then the front is 25. So we'd have wiggle room that if he even separated this out here, started this building out here a little ways and a distance between the two,
You've got,
but that would be two buildings.
And then the only one that would need to comply would be the new building, is that right?
That is correct.
Wouldn't have to make any changes to the current building. If they were.
Unless he made that commitment to make the site, because that then gets into that site feature that,
How far away or is that something you know offhand? How far away would the new building need to be from the existing structure? Where that existing.
oh,
structure
I
would
mean, that would probably be, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're gonna have to scale it out.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the distance here from building to building isn't much of a concern, it's just how this
Yeah.
20 feet comes off of here.
I understand that. He's offering to make the older building match, put new siding on the older building on the south side. And do some other changes to that building to make it look more like the new building. Or if you turn the new structure and put it up
Yeah, then that,
14 feet away from the existing.
yeah, then it
structure, that far,
exposes,
That you wouldn't be required to make changes in the existing structure.
I mean, if the board didn't want to ask him, if the other property owners were okay with having a different exterior material for the existing, I think that was one of the reasons why adding them, combining them and having a seamless look was one of the requests. So, I mean,
I
Yeah.
don't think that was fully met according to the piece of property.
What do you mean?
I'm just wondering if you did, let's say you built way down here. With the new building was fully compliant as far as with UDO, exterior materials and. How high it was and. Where's the bay door space and everything else was compliant. You wouldn't have to make change one to that new building. We'd have to build a bigger parking lot, a bigger driveway, but. wouldn't have to change that as a building. Or put any new siding or do anything. Is that right?
I mean, the way that, I want to double check, but I mean, but the way that the legal non-conforming site structures, is that if there was modification to whether it's a new structure or in addition to a structure that is still changing a legal non-conforming use, that would then could prompt then some other site features and other development standards, architectural standards that we need to come in compliance. So in my, you know, thinking, here, tonight, without fully reviewing it, my hunch is we're still dealing with the same type of requirements. It's not going to change anything, whether it's an addition to the building or if it is a separate standalone building. He's still making improvements to the property.
And we still have to go through the Indiana code. The areas that,
It's the 5 criteria.
yeah, it's criteria.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a surprise when we got talking about renting it out to, RV owners, photo,
Mhm.
where that's not really been mentioned before, they need to be up into.
That is correct. It was indoor storage and self-storage.
And that would be something that I think the neighboring property owner want to be in on.
Definitely, and I don't see that that's even a permitted use in neighborhood business. Are you?
It's retail, and under retail, if you look at the definition, indoor storage is.
So are we
Yeah.
wanting to see an alternate layout? Do we need more information? Do we want to entertain a motion?
I'm not sure if the additional information will still get us into compliance with what we need to meet from the Indiana code. And that's, yeah, that's the point we have to meet at the end of the day.
Yeah, your 5 criteria. I agree.
I mean, do we want to just talk through those?
Yeah, we can talk through those, just so everyone has an understanding of what needs to be met.
Do you want to go to that last slide? So yeah, basically we have to meet these 5 criteria.
I would have to say, no on the first one, because I do feel like safety is a concern based on the use of renting to others.
Say general welfare, the neighbors are up in arms about it.
And I mean, I could also argue, and nothing personal,
No.
sometimes you have neighbors that you're never gonna please either.
But it is non-conforming.
But it's not conforming, but to me, because we have not even explored the safety with, other people using this, because it was new tonight.
Value adjacent property. I don't know if that would be adversely affected. I mean, it's,
I don't think so.
we could probably
I
say
mean, it
this.
might not be live, but it's not adversely affected.
Yeah. Strict application result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. And I think you could develop this site in conformance with the UDO.
Yes, if we're structure built on site to comply, and we're trying to take essentially 2 buildings and making them comply, which is making us talk in circles essentially.
And the variance granted is a minimum necessary. I mean, so like the variance is mainly for architectural and site improvement features on the new building. So if you used an approved material and you put the doors away from the road, that would reduce the variance needed. You still don't have the landscape or the sidewalk or any of that. You could install those things. I don't know how. What's being requested is the bare minimum that's needed. It's what's needed to use this existing building.
I think the last bullet point is one of the bigger ones. The variance granted does not correct a hardship caused by a former or current owner of the property. I feel like the use of an already existing building with an existing building is creating this hardship. If it were spec'd out, and I'll say new materials, I know the other is new, but it's used, right? It's been constructed. Yes, it looks nice where it is based on pictures. But it's not cited for this particular intent, which is creating the hardships that we're trying to figure out here. In talking through this, it's not meeting the Indiana statute.
Is there a time frame where we need to wrap this up?
The board, you can do as Denise has indicated, you can continue it if you wish. Obviously, the petitioner's not here. There's been a lot of things discussed, or you can deny it. You can approve it with conditions as presented. You can add new conditions. And so we talked about going back to the rules of BZA and maybe having some more strict requirements for the petitioners actually being present in order to hear this. I think this may be a good example of that. So that, you know, we weren't trying to depict certain things and someone can't see it, it's difficult. Yeah, so, but I think those are your options, really. I believe this is the third meeting we've had, but, you know, I'll defer to you and what you wish and what Denise and others.
I'm thinking maybe we continue it, but when we get going, you know, we're missing.
Yeah.
40% of the board here, so.
Continue it, but I have to stress it has to meet those 5 conditions per Indiana statute. It goes beyond our UDO, it goes beyond this gray area. This is what we have to look at. And I'll say quasi judicial here. We have to meet those criteria based on Indiana statute. Not a Pendleton thing, it's a state thing. And how that section of the law is written for us to.
What would the petitioner's way forward be if we just did vote and deny it? Would it start over? Does he have appeal right? Does he have to redesign?
He would have the ability to appeal to take it up.
Would,
Yeah, by statute.
yeah.
And those are whether or not the decision, you know, met the criteria, the statutory criteria as we talked about. Alternatively, could work with Denise and the staff and try to figure out some other ways to be in compliance.
Instead of, for instance, instead of using the building that he already owns, that's kind of stuck with the doors they already have. Build something on site or some other option. Rather than trying to make this building fit the property when it doesn't apply.
Well, at least, I mean, the two of you discussed one option, removing the variance, rotating the building. That may or may not work. I mean, Denise, you and Hannah Rose Connor may need to look at that, and that would be an option, right? To even see it satisfies.
Have to.
Kind of like we did with the hobby farm, we asked to have some lines drawn and show, where the art of the possible would be, or the fencing and everything else. Maybe we need to do that with this thing. Say, well, if we rotate it this way, you got this much clearance to get in the doors. You're not gonna block the existing garage doors. They're not gonna be facing the street. I can't solve the roof problem, but
Maybe we could do some landscaping along the road or something just to block the view. I don't think.
Petitioners willing to.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be up to him to offer that. And maybe we'd have a full board next month and have a.
I agree, that gives 5 votes and 5 different thoughts.
maybe let the neighbors know that there is potential for him to rent it out to boats and RV owners, things like that,
Yeah.
in my mind, that does make a difference, because if he's using it for his personal antique car collection, he's one thing, but if he's renting it out to somebody who's got a 35-foot bass boat or a big RV.
Yeah.
And Main Street's not very wide.
Mhm.
And that gives time to address some safety concerns too. Which is one of the 5 criteria.
Did you hear that, Mr. Humble?
Yes,
And you'd have to, you know, and if that's something that you're willing to commit, that it'd just be restricted to personal self-storage, you know, that would be something that you can let me know about. If we, and you will be back, by the May,
he was saying.
you, yeah, but you will need to attend in person. You need to be at this hearing in person.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about here. Special.
But can he be
What
at the main?
I have to jump to in order to get the job done.
So that will be something that will be discussed and a decision that'll be made by the board. They can either make a decision tonight to deny it based on the criteria not being met. They can continue it out to have a full board to make that either that decision or to determine if they want to approve it with commitment and conditions. So- So I understand that you'll be back in town later this week. So your presence, I would believe, would be expected then in person at the next meeting. And that would be at the May 19th meeting, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. Or let's do a special meeting.
May 19th.
May 19th. So it'd be May 19th, and you'll need to be here in person.
Something, telling me the criteria that wasn't met or that I did not meet.
Yep, it's the same criteria that I sent to you after our last meeting the last time when I sent you that petition. But I can send that to you again. Yes.
Well, I'll go back and review it.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess sounds like we're, gonna entertain a motion to continue.
Yes, I'll make the motion
Okay.
to continue until the next meeting.
I'll second that motion. Do we, at what point do we make it a requirement for him to be present at the main meeting? Is that just,
We've already said it needs to be.
second that motion?
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
I,
Continue. Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome.
I guess part of that too, do we want to see what this building turned, how that fits?
Yeah, should be. safe.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. Yeah.
And it sounds like maybe you'll meet with him in between and have that discussion.
We still have the issue with the roof.
Oh, yeah,
Heatings, all that.
yeah, that's not resolved yet.
Well, and don't forget that building's encroached, so we're not sure exactly, the existing building is already encroaching on our property, so we really need to, we're gonna be tight, if we turn that building in the setback.
Yeah, as I say, we have to definitely have a
We're gonna have
survey
to
for
figure out
sure,
where that-
and
I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
speaking out of turn.
No, you're
you're good. Yeah.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on.
Mhm.
Old business C, conditional use, 625 West.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay.
will we be tabling that?
Okay, so okay, I apologize. He's emailing me now.
Oh.
Hazel.
Okay.
Okay, so this particular petition,
So is petitioner here?
he is not here.
Is he online?
He was here online the last hearing. Was fully aware that this hearing was continued to this next month, that he was gonna be back in town. We communicated through email as well as phone conversation last week and talked about this meeting. And that he would be present for this and that I had all the information that I needed and I'd reach back out if I had any other questions. So I had tried to reach him when we were waiting, earlier this evening. And he is claiming that he was not aware that he needed to be at this meeting. So I can present the updated information, you know, what we
Do we need that tonight?
had.
Cause we'll be going, exactly.
May 19th. Okay, we'll have a courtesy, we will continue this out one more time. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Now, we have people here for this,
Yes, I do
besides
believe too.
petitioners.
Yes.
Well,
We don't
I mean-
continue.
Well, I mean, they know now because they're
They
at the
know.
meeting.
Yeah,
But I don't know if they want a chance to speak, even though we're not going through this, they are here, they took their time out,
Yeah,
they sat through the other.
yeah.
What do we do?
I can, oh,
But board, I would, and Denise, one of the things that I mentioned earlier, and we talked about this. And perhaps what we need to do is work together to amend our rules. We've had a couple examples where we've had multiple meetings. People haven't been in attendance for whatever reason. Typically, these boards in their rules have the ability, if you have the discretion, but it would be set forth in the rules to dismiss a petition. You can do it without prejudice, which allows someone to refile. It gets a little more strict if you do it like with prejudice, right? Which says, hey, you're done. We don't have those in our rules, so I would suggest that at least at this point, we would continue and give the Hazels an opportunity for whatever reason. You know, they're very good.
So attendance is an
People,
hour.
Then
Attendance,
we notice,
Good.
because
so in our rules, attending is not required.
it is in person via representative or Zoom. Like you have a virtual option. I believe that was changed right into COVID, or
Yeah.
post-COVID, to give that. And we've had some, the petitioners that have shown up and been just fine. I mean, Treacle Carney has shown up to all of his meetings via Zoom. We've never had issue.
Yeah.
But,
But
as
in this
we've
case,
seen,
it's neither.
Yeah.
Correct.
but we have, seen some issues with it if people are not showing up or if
So-
Zoom isn't working. So,
Amending rules. But if they don't show up in person or online, then we give only one continuance, and then after that, then we could dismiss with prejudice. Is that kind of the step process?
What we've typically seen and done is, and I think I would just suggest a reasonable standard, right? So certain stances come up, right?
Yes, and I want to be reasonable and
So,
go through all of the.
I think what we're
steps.
seeing, at least in a couple of these more recently, is Denise, Hannah Rose, Connor, the town's team spent a lot of time working with people, and for whatever reason, they're not here, right? And we have people in the audience and that are taking their time out. So I think what we could do is add some provisions that would allow the board to continue for whatever reason. The petitioners could continue for whatever reason, but if we go beyond that and they haven't requested it, then the board could seek to have a dismissal. This is a good example, unfortunately, right, where
Denise,
oh, just one moment, Mr. Humble. Yeah, sorry.
where at least I believe that were online last time, we talked about the
They
next
were.
meeting and
Mhm.
something may have come up. Sounds like we don't know. And I would just, that may be able to help give us a little more leeway as opposed to we dismiss. And then all of a sudden we find out somebody got in a car accident, whatever. Yeah.
so we'd be at the board's.
It's
discretion.
reasonable to continue it.
I would say a courtesy continue at one time.
I mean, if there's a second meeting and they don't show that. Then
But you mentioned doing what to renotice?
I mean, I was gonna say table it to renotice it, but you don't have to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Made a motion to.
I'll make a second to continue.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, continued. To the May 19th meeting. New business. Variance from development standards 331 South Broadway.
This is the one we're gonna, make a motion to continue to our essential hearing. Because we would not have. This
Yeah.
refusals.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll second that
Next time
motion to
have snacks.
continue new business.
And if you can put either to a special hearing and or the
Sorry,
May
to the-
19th.
Sorry, to the special hearing.
And or the May 19th if a special hearing is not possible. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll make a second, I guess, to either a special meeting or the main meeting. There we go.
Thank you.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
They give two cents, no two cents.
What's this?
I think we could probably get this updated.
I make anything.
I have a couple amendments.
What do they say?
For Planning commission too.
Does that need to have a public notice on the rules amendment to the BZA rules?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
okay,
We'll double
okay.
Anything
Yeah.
else for the,
Yeah.
for the song here?
We need to have that.
Denise, do you have anything additional?
If we have a special session, that's my neighbor.
Yeah,
We have a special session. Just for that, do I come or?
You're
oh,
welcome to come. You would just recuse yourself as you were gonna do this evening.
that would be the only
Has that,
matter that
has that
will,
notice for public hearing been sent out on that?
yes, it was sent out, but
That would have to, it's special. It's been continued, so I don't think it would, I mean, if it goes to the 19th meeting, I don't think they have to, or we have to renotice the public hearing.
So
If
you're
it's a
saying-
Special meeting, it would have to be renoticed.
Yeah, we'll put it in the paper.
People don't know what it is.
but renotice to what degree? Renotice as far as like the 10-day public
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah.
notice, then we can't
Yeah.
schedule for next week.
That was 2 days.
For a special meeting, but if you're saying continuing,
So we will just have it in May.
we're just gonna have to have it.
That's-
Yeah, just because it's been noticed, we publicly, you know,
Continued.
continued it.
But if we continue to a special hearing, it's different.
It's gotta
Okay.
be renoticed.
But we're good for May 19th.
Because that won't, yeah, yeah,
Will the Robs be back by then?
we'll just be,
He will. I don't know about
yeah,
that.
Rob is just out this week. I believe Bob is as well, so. He should be done with his schooling.
Thanks.
So, yes, do please come, James.
Yeah, okay.
Because we'll have the other.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.